All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live with our game preview for this Week 7 Big Ten matchup. Penn State Nittany Lions traveling to the Los Angeles Memorial Colliseum. Let me make sure we're rolling here. And before we begin, I just want to take 1 second. So the head coach, USC, is Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley is a Texas Tech graduate. That's where he coached. And as a Texas Tech graduate, this was the head coach, Mike Leach. Mike Leach, swing your sword. And I think there's a funny connection here because if you think swing your sword, Mike Leach being a Pirate, that air raid offense that they had rolling with Graham Harrell. Fun fact, Graham Harrell got fired by Purdue as offensive coordinator at Purdue a week or two ago. But swing your sword, Texas Tech, Pirate, and now Lincoln Riley is the head coach at the USC Trojan. Think of Trojan Troy pregame, or they come out to the 50-yard line and they take that sword and they stab it. So, fun little connection there. So, anyways, let's talk football. The number 4 ranked Penn State Nittany Lions traveling out west to LA. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you at home, I believe this is something that if you are in the Big Ten and you've traveled out west, that is a big deal, not just for the time change, but just for all the logistics that have to go with you have to leave early. So now teams kind of got the hang of it. They know they have to make this long flight. They're going to leave on the Thursday instead of the Friday. So they'll have 2 days out there, Thursday night, Friday night, and then have a nice long trip back. The Miami Hurricanes just did this last weekend. They left Thursday. They were playing at Cal in Berkeley. And then that was a very late game. That would have been like 8 o'clock. I think that game started at 8 o'clock Central. So 6 o'clock California time. And why that? The reason that's important, so Miami had an advantage because they played the prior Friday. That was that controversial Virginia Tech Miami game where they ruled that Hail Mary. Somehow it was incomplete, even though you saw the guy come down with it and his butt hit the end zone there. But so Miami played on a Friday and they left on a Thursday. That means they could have got their normal rest and meetings and recovery and still had their full practice week Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, rest Wednesday, travel out Thursday. Penn State does not have that luxury this time. And I don't know when they're practicing. My guess is they're going to do some sort of maybe a light practice Thursday and then do some other nice long jog through on Friday when they're there in LA. Again, what does this mean to you, the casual or diehard fan? You just got to take it into consideration, right? There's a reason the number 4 team, Penn State, which is firing on all cylinders, as you would have it. Let's take a quick look. Drew Aller, quarterback for the Penn State Nittany Lions, he's playing at a very high level. He has the one of the highest QB ratings in all of the FBS. And, in comparison to Miller Moss, quarterback for the USC Trojans, his quarterback rating is, so 88 to 60. So he's kind of like Miller Moss, like middle of the pack. Drew Aller's top 5. And so, obviously, Penn State has 2 solid running backs in a Singleton and what's this other guy's name? I don't have that at the top of my head right now. I believe USC will have the edge here in receivers. USC has 3 very solid receivers for their passing attack. And then a couple, of note is how solid, both teams have boasted a solid defense. For USC, they faced a lot of criticism over the offseason, letting go of their defensive coordinator, Alex Grinch, last year, now rolling with Danton Lin and seeing much improvement, especially with that first game, big victory over the LSU Tigers in Las Vegas. But Penn State's defensive coordinator is Tom Allen. He was previously the head coach of Indiana, and they're rocking and rolling. They also have a new offensive coordinator for Penn State, and he was previously at Kansas. So 2 new coordinators, but Penn State is certainly flying high on all cylinders. They're 4-0. They've looked good in all their games. They had a nice tough scare challenge against Bowling Green. I remember watching that game. It seemed like Bowling Green had a touchdown lead the whole time, and then Penn State kind of, sealed it away at the end there. But big thing that I see, just first thing that pops out, statistics, turnover margin. Penn State is 21st in the country. They have a +4 turnover margin. USC, one of nearly dead last. I believe they are 96th in the country turnover margin. Pete Carroll, legendary, now he's retired. The USC, they used to always do something called Turnover Wednesdays. It was competition, or I think for NFL they had, but in college it was Competition Tuesday and then Turnover Wednesday. So turnovers, the ball. You got to hold on to it. You got to create turnovers. So if USC, in the last game for USC, they threw a couple picks there, kind of in Hail Mary end of game situations that didn't, help that turnover margin. But again, let's talk about that. That last game for USC, tough road game at Minnesota, came down to the final play, 4th and 1 at the goal line. Minnesota heavied up. Looks like they broke the plane. It was initially ruled short, and after review, got overturned. So it's always questionable. Okay, you have a big rugby pile like that. It's not a clear and obvious review, and that's the biggest thing with as the rules state, and that's kind of Lincoln Riley in his press media availability this week. He addressed that you're not complaining, you're not saying that's the reason that the Trojans lost that game, but it certainly is puzzling. As the rules state, as the rules state, you cannot overturn a call if the video evidence is not clear and obvious and definitive. And I think we can all agree from watching that play, it was not definitive when this guy was down, if the ball came out, breaking the plane. It's just incredibly difficult to make that judgment, whether you're eye in the sky or if you're on the field as an official. So back to the game, brief history, USC, Penn State, obviously nothing needs to be said for the historical blue blood significance. Both of these programs, nearly 1,000 wins, 900 plus for both of them. Let's see here. Yep, 935 for USC, and what was it, 892 for Penn State. Both teams had some issues there with previous, history getting erased for both teams there. Last time these two squared off was the 2017 Rose Bowl. Notable players from that game: quarterback Sam Darnold for the USC Trojans and quarterback Trace McSorley for the Penn State Nittany Lions. Sam Darnold looking pretty good right now with the undefeated Minnesota Vikings. You also had Saquon Barkley in that game, and also had receiver Chris Godwin for Penn State. Man, it's always fun looking back, and I still remember that game. That's in recent memory. So, and then they were the last regular season meeting, USC and Penn State. These two teams met in East Rutherford, New Jersey, like in 2000 and 2001. And I don't have off the top of my head right here who won those. I believe USC won those, because that's when Pete Carroll would have been coming to town. All right. What's the point of having my computer if I don't even know? The last regular season meeting in LA at the Coliseum was 1991. USC won that one. That was their doldrum years. They were not very good back then. So I'd say quarterback-wise, I think we're pretty even. Certainly Miller Moss has had some problems. One of the big concerns watching these games closely, and I have not watched Penn State very closely, even during that Illinois-Penn State game, which I should have been watching closely. That was also the Alabama-Georgia game. So a little preoccupied there. But one big thing from USC has been the struggles of the offensive line. This was evident in their loss at Michigan in the Big House. It looked slightly better against Wisconsin. That was a home win for the Trojans. And then last week at Minnesota, especially on those last couple drives where really had to get something in a 2-minute situation. Didn't seem like Miller Moss was able to be comfortable in the pocket. And again, there's only so much you can do with play calling and personnel and max protection to help your quarterback in that situation. So that's going to be, I would say, one of my good keys to watch for is USC able to fix issues at the offensive line in terms of getting in rhythm, getting Miller Moss rolling. I've stated this on social media just from watching that first game with LSU and even watching tape. I think Miller Moss is one of the top quarterbacks in this country. I have not watched Drew Aller very closely. It certainly appears that he's playing at a high level. I did see something where Kerry Collins was boasting his praise. If you remember, Kerry Collins was the New York Giants. They didn't win the Super Bowl that year, but he's a very famous Penn State graduate. I believe he graduated around 95 or so, right around that time. Again, the travel is a big factor. I do anticipate this to be a close game. I think both defenses will step up here. I'm not going to make any final call or prediction. That's what Las Vegas and money lines are for. So have your fun placing your bets. Let the chips fall as they may. This game also just happens to be going on at the exact same time as Red River rivalry, Texas, Oklahoma. So the nation's eyes it'll be a sensory overload. Right here, not too far from where I'm shooting this video is where they're going to be playing that at the Cotton Bowl, and then also at historic Los Angeles Memorial Colliseum. Let me make sure, just double check my notes, any major things that I wanted to talk about here. And folks, come on, there's a reason I'm making this. I'm more excited for this game than just about any others. I'd also say LSU Ole Miss is going to be worth, get your popcorn ready. And then certainly Ohio State, Oregon has very big significance. Story of the season, Penn State. This could be the Nick Saban rat poison. They have a bye next week, and then they have Wisconsin, and then they have Ohio State. So if you're a fan, if you are very overconfident, you're already looking ahead at that date. And it could be very easy to overlook a road trip against a USC team coming off a loss. If you're USC and you suffered some close losses on the road, team has looked better, piecing together, top to bottom, all three phases, a better product, I would say, as the season goes on. Can you put it together in prime time against a top team that deserves all their ranking and respect and accolades? And Coach Franklin's been there 11 years now. Man, I remember when Coach Franklin was at Vanderbilt. Funny because Vanderbilt is prevalent in the news this week after their big win over the Crimson Tide last week. So I'm having fun arguing with people on YouTube comments who are bashing Lincoln Riley. And I'm sure these are just casual fans who don't quite know the history or watch all the games, just throwing shade. Again, you kind of know where my affinity lies. Mike Leach, Texas Tech. This is a game that I don't really have I have rooting interest in both. So I've always respected, admired Penn State. If you've ever been to Beaver Stadium in Happy Valley, one of the best atmospheres in all of college football. And yes, Aggie Land, even though I've enjoyed my time there in Bryan College Station, I would say 107 strong and Beaver Stadium is almost, if not better, because when they do the whiteout, the night games, that's but Kyle Field's pretty cool too. So anyways, I'm gonna stop boring you and enjoy the games this weekend, and we will see you next week on Gladius Football.